Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We got to look a quick little space tonight to identify and answer the question: Is or are European and economic and social order based upon black exploitation? Now that comes straight from our dear deceased brother, Dr. Amos Wilson. He asked that question. Um, we kind of toyed around with that last night, but we're going to go a little deeper into it today. Our scholarship comes from Claude Anderson and Dr. Howard Zinn and our sister Warning Spots. Well, anyway, what does European economic and social order is based on is European social and economic order based upon exploitation? Last night we talked about the social hierarchy, wherein um, in the monarchy rather, where in the Europeans have a king and a queen of royal blood, and the king is a land, the land is a king, so everybody falls up under the king, but the king has lieutenants. You know what I'm saying? You can't have power by yourself and rule a land. It don't work that way. People get jealous of you. People get scared of you, and they have you killed. So the king needs to deputize a group of thugs to help him share the wealth. Those thugs, under the leadership of King James, you know, the one who rewrote the Holy Bible, were named the founding fathers, but I digress. Um, so we call that social elite nobility. Nobility is made up of dukes, earls, barons, ladies, lords, esquires, as they're known. They're above everybody else. Below the esquires, you have the knights or the police to protect the esquires and the king away from the rest of us. Below the police or the military, knights, that section, you have what is known as serfs. Serfs are us, most of us, people who work for a living. I'm a serf. Below a serf, you have a peasant. Now, last night we identified, um, we said that the foundational Black American was identified as the peasant class. Why so? You can't have an effective social structure without a peasantry class. Yeah, who put that in there? Wow. Thank you for doing that. Oh, Nikki did that. Thank you, Nikki. I was Christoph Cologne or Christopher Columbus um, was looking for a new world. Some people say because he was exiled out of Europe, but I'm not going to get into that today. His group was exiled out of Europe, I should say, but I'm going to leave that alone for now. Christoph Cologne was delusional. I said it. Christopher Columbus was delusional. He was on a quest for gold. Christopher Columbus got a charter from Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand of Spain and the Catholic Church. That dynamic devious trio sent him on a quest to look for gold to help them pay for war so they could kill each other. But that's besides the point. The point is when Christopher Columbus made it to the Americas. He never made it to the United States of America. He made it to Hispaniola, also known as Haiti. He said the following. This comes out of his diary. Quote, they brought us parrots and balls of cotton and spears and many other things in which they exchanged for glass beads and hawk's bells. They willingly traded everything they owned. They were built with good bodies and handsome features. They do not bear arms and do not know them, for I showed them a sword, and they took it by the edge and cut themselves out of ignorance. They have no iron, their spears are made of cane. They would make fine servants. With 50 men, we could subjugate them and make them do whatever we want. See, he was looking for a group of people to enslave, right? That's exploitation. Now, the Native Americans, as I have experienced when I did a training with the United States Marine Corps, um, were looked Australasian or Melanesian. They looked like our ancestors. So this group of people were identified as the peasant class. The peasant class was supposed to be the Indians, air quotes. Dr. Howard Zinn also says that Spain was recently unified. Spain sought gold, which was becoming the new mark of wealth, more useful than land because it could buy anything, right? Columbus basically went and said that there was gold. He had a vision. This is historically sound. Columbus had a vision of gold flowing through the what do you call it, the rivers of Hispaniola or Haiti, but there never was any. So, according to Dr. Howard Zinn, quote, because of Columbus's exaggerated reports and promises, his second expedition was given 17 ships. I remember the first one he had three, and more than 1,200 men. The aim was clear: slaves and gold. They went slaves and gold. They went from island to island in the Caribbean, taking Indian captives. But as word spread of the Europeans' intent, they found more and more empty villages. So, in conclusion, Columbus did not find any gold, so he took slaves back to the old world as leverage to pay for his expedition. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because that's evidence to prove that European economic and social order is based upon exploitation. They needed people to exploit to have their um, social status. Wani, is European economic and social order based upon on black exploitation? What do you think about that?
Yes, it is. And it's been based on exploitation from the very beginning. As soon as they ran into other people that is in what we now call Europe, they exploited them and, Romanized them, Hellenized them, and did everything to each other. They put each other in serfdom. They created feudalist systems. So yeah, they've been that whole name of the game is exploitation, and then they started the age of exploration, and then continued to find new people and places to exploit for resources, whether it's minerals or human labor. But I wanted to go back to what you said before. You mentioned the word handsome in a quote. You remember?
Yeah, he said that Christopher Columbus is coming out of his diary, his captain's
Hmm.
log. Christopher Columbus,
Right.
he said they were, quote, they were well built with good bodies and handsome features. What does that mean,
You
Wani?
know, handsome in the 15th century, the 1400s, meant easy to handle or maneuver, easy to handle or use. It
It
didn't
sound like
mean
some bussy bottom stuff.
it could be some bussy bottom stuff. You see, it could be. I mean, that's what it meant. And then it shifted into attractiveness. It evolved over time to attractiveness, particularly in men, and or generous. So somehow, if you say that person is handsome, that somehow meant generous. I
Hmm.
don't get that. They say that's what it means now, but that's not how people use it. But at that time, that word meant easy to handle or use.
Wow, that makes sense because people say he got paid a handsome salary. I've heard that.
Ah,
Yeah.
yes.
Right. Now back to exploitation. According to on Dr. Howard Zinn, quote, from his base in Haiti, Columbus sent expedition after expedition into the interior. Stop right there. Now keep in mind, Columbus had visions of gold. Is a vision scientific? No. I think he was delusional because he hadn't had enough water or something. But he had dreams of I I see streams just flowing with gold, right? Howard Zinn says, quote, they found no gold fields, but had to fill up the ships returning to Spain with some kind of dividend. Here comes your exploitation. Quote, in the year 1495, they went on a great slave raid. They round up 1,500 Arawak men, women, and children, put them in pens guarded by Spaniards and dogs, and then picked 500 of the best specimens to load into ships. Of those 500, 200 died en route, almost half of them. The rest arrived alive in Spain and were put up for sale by the archdeacon of the town. So listen at this shit, ladies and gentlemen. Um, let's talk how deep this exploitation goes. The church was used as I heard our brother Tariq Nasheed say yesterday, a recording yesterday say, I'm paraphrasing, but he said something like, he's talking about moral authority, and he said the white Christian church is where Klan meetings would meet up, so they have no moral authority. He was right about that. The white Christian church was sanctified this filth, like Howard Zinn just said. The archdeacon. Can you imagine a deacon of a black church showing up and saying, "Ooh, here come some slaves. Lock them up, whoop them, and we're gonna sell them on the market." Dr. Zen says by the archdeacon of the town who reported that, listen to this, although the slaves were as naked as the day they were born, they showed no more embarrassment than animals. Columbus later wrote, "Let us, in the name of the Holy Trinity, go on sending all the slaves that can be sold." Let me say that shit one more time. Columbus said, "Let us, in the name of the Holy Trinity, go on sending all the slaves that can be sold." Who is this
Well,
dude?
that should give you some insight on their version of Christianity. And he's not even Christian. He speaks in Hebrew and writes in Hebrew, so I don't know who he is.
Right, right. Dr. John Henry Clark said that too. Now, Dr. Zen says, but too many of the slaves died in captivity. And so Columbus, desperate to pay back dividends to those who had invested, had to make good on his promise to fill the ships with gold. In the province of Callao in Haiti, where he and his men imagined, that's what I'm talking about, imagined huge gold fields to exist, they ordered all persons 14 years or older to collect a certain quantity of gold every 3 months. When they brought it, they were given a copper token to hang around their necks. Indians found without a copper token had their right hands cut off and bled to death. That's called exploitation, ladies and gentlemen. The European sense of wealth is gathered at the diametric opposition of other racial groups. Um, Dr. Zen said the Indians had been given an impossible task. The only gold around was bits of dust garnered from the streams, so they fled and were hunted down with dogs and killed. We're looking at, why am I reading this? We're looking at the foundation. That's the key word of this week. The foundation of the social and economic order of Europe. From its inception, ladies and gentlemen, it was based upon making somebody else or exploiting somebody else. Now, these quote unquote Indians over time would morph into the foundational Black American, but the paradigms stayed the same. European economic and social prestige is garnered at the expense of others.
And they don't seem to show any other way to exist. Every time you
Fact.
look at something that they've done, it's like we got it from this person, or we, expanded over into this people's lands. And I'm not saying that they were the only ones doing those types of things, because Turkic people were also expanding. Mongols were also expanding and taking other people's stuff. So that was the name of the game, especially over in that area. You had Turkic people, you had what you would call Asian people, you had what you would call Caucasian people or white people, all fighting and battering each other for land. And there's plenty of land, but for some reason they just have to do this. And then when they get these settled areas, they just start invading each other. Like, what do you want? Why do you need to invade? And I'm not saying that I don't like the fallout of the Greco-Roman Empire, because when they expanded, they collected up a bunch of people's cultures, which I don't like because I like to preserve cultures, but they made themselves into a super culture by doing that. And I did
Right.
say before that there's some sort of, it does make sense to try to make everybody in your vicinity the same religion, or have the same ideologies because it's safer. If you have, if everybody believes in the same God and they have the same ideologies, they believe the same way, then basically you're safer. You're around people that are like mind versus someone who has a completely different God and has a different way of thinking about things, and you live right next to them, you would be less safe. So I understand the trying to Romanize people and Hellenize people and colonize everyone, because as you see, the missionaries went out and said, "This is God. You have to do this." It's safer for everyone to think they're going to go to heaven and they're going to be good. And so Jesus will like them and they'll be able to go to heaven and have fun. That mindset is safer for everyone, because if someone says, "Nope, I don't believe that. I don't, do as thou wilt, I'll do whatever I want," that person would be a loose cannon amongst people that are thinking that if I'm good, I will go to heaven. So it makes sense to try to make everyone around you the same religion, but from an anthropological point of view, I don't like it because we erase a lot of people's cultures and ideas that didn't get a chance to flourish, and it gets kind of crashed into the more dominant cultures, and we just miss a lot of things.
Right, right, right. So, Juan, if you don't mind, I want to kind of piggyback. Let's look at this from another angle. We explored European parasitic behavior. Let's look at Dr. Claude Anderson briefly, and we're going to pivot. Um, Dr. Claude Anderson says on page 114 of Black Labor, White Wealth, slavery represented a viable means by which one might be enriched at the expense of others. Enrichment at the expense of others is exploitation 101, ladies and gentlemen. Claude said, Dr. Anderson further says, Western Europeans entered the slave trade in the 16th century and applied new capitalistic principles to old trading practices. Achieving the maximum return on investments became the rule. Under Roman law, slaves had certain rights, but under English law, slaves were treated as property with no rights. Black slaves were reduced to a level of chattel equal to property or any other tool. To achieve maximum return on their investments, black slaves would be worked to death during their prime years in order to recapture the investment as early as possible. Because old black slaves had no value, in 1664, an English Puritan, that's a religious person, reportedly called slave trading the worst kind of thievery in the world. So I was reading that to show you, even outside of Columbus, European ideology is parasitic and exploitive, right? In other words, in layman's terms, they have proven a track record of having to um, prey upon people to get a come up. They have to kill people and destroy lives to get prestige and to get wealth, right? So let's juxtapose that with foundational Black Americans. I'm looking at a book by Wani Spots called "The Secret Origins of Black Americans." Let's juxtapose what we learned about Columbus and other Europeans with what Wani teaches us about foundational Black Americans. And what we're going to try to explore is we want to see if foundational Black Americans had to exploit to get their come up. Let's start with Benjamin Banneker. Wani, could you tell us a little bit about Benjamin Banneker? Did he have to exploit anybody?
No, he just happened to be a genius and what they call a polymath and an architect, and he was apparently self taught. And just a lot of these people were just geniuses and don't seem to have any formal training. He's one of many architects that, helped build the foundation of the United States of America. And most of them, we don't even know their names, but the foundation of America was built with labor, skilled tradesmen, and professional quality architects.
Yeah, you bring up architects. Could you tell us a little bit about Vertner, Woods, and Tandy?
I don't know.
Yeah, he was
I
a
just have him on there as, as an architect.
yeah. Vertner Woodson Tandy was a acclaimed architect that designed aesthetic residences and functional, or should I say, according to Wani Spots,
Hmm.
acclaimed
Hmm.
architect designed aesthetic and residences and functional public structures. The reason why I brought up
Hmm. I
Vertner,
was going to
go ahead.
say a lot of those architects, you could write a book on each one. You see, I just want people to see how many of these people have been brilliant architects and we've never heard of them. Just like the list of the athletes, I don't remember the list of all the gold medal winning athletes or the names of all the people that won national champions. Um, but I know that we have a gold medal in bobsledding. And I know that we have gold medals in swimming, speed skating, and things we're not associated with. We do have gold medals in winter sports, and we have gold medals in sports that people think we're not participating in. We have changed the way that people surf, believe it or not. We have surfing champions, and they changed the way that people did footwork when they were surfing, and they translated that into skateboarding. And so I know that we've been doing that we've broken barriers in 50 sports and competitions, but it's just a massive amount of work. It's like a portfolio that we just didn't know we had until I just went one by one and listed those people. Like, tell you this also in the book, there's a bunch of artists, I've never heard of them, but I listed them, and they weren't the only artist. um, Great authors. I listed them, never heard of them, and they were very groundbreaking and very poetic, and a lot of them spoke about our condition. Some of them spoke about other things. These are things that I really don't have the ability to remember all of these people. That's why I put it in a book, because it's a huge, huge portfolio that I don't think we know that we did. I don't think we know that we've done all these things. And when you put that together, when you see the massive amounts of gold medals, we have more gold medals than entire continents, you see, and we're fussing and fighting with these people, and we have a insurmountable amount of achievements. People can never get on top of us ever, because we've been the first to do things, and they can never break through that. All they can do is say, I did that. I was the first black manager at Taco Bell in a Spanish neighborhood. They can run around saying that they're the first of something, sure. There's some corny town in Nowheresville, America, and an African can go over there and be a manager at a store and say they're the first. But I'm sorry, we've just done a lot of things, and they have been groundbreaking. We have been in politics, but we've had a very rocky road in politics, because after Reconstruction, it was, a lot of black men participated in politics and had very high positions, and I listed them too. Politicians, our first politicians, I don't know their names.
Right.
I never heard of these people. Um, and so, except for one of them, the one that commandeered that ship and escaped on the ship. That guy's badass,
Oh
and
yeah.
he was a politician as well. But then there, every time we make gains, there's a group of haters that rears up and says no, we have to erase these gains. This is what we've been, it's like a roller coaster. We start making gains, and then some group comes up and changes things. We do have some sane white people that have more of a fair-minded position, but they're overwhelmed by the others. They're outnumbered, and they're overwhelmed, and they're also cowards. So they don't want to live in peace because they won't rear up against. these others, but you can see them rearing up against somebody that wants to stop men from getting in the swimming pool. They rear up for the weirdest things, but they won't rear up against other white people being racist and murdering us when we were trying to hold office in a country that we built and just try to have representation for ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And what I would like to identify to add on to what our sister Wanda just said is all the people she mentioned and I mentioned did not have to exploit. There is no exploitation with John A. Langford, according to Wani Spott's influential architect that drafted and emphasized integration of traditional African elements into American agriculture. I mean architecture, not agriculture. Excuse me. Or George Washington Foster, according to Wani Spott's was a celebrated architect who planned public and private structures with cultural expressions. Or, like I said earlier, architect Vertner Woodson Tandy, who, according to Wani Spots, was an acclaimed architect who designed aesthetic residences and functional public structures. The reason why Vertner Woodson Tandy's mind popped into my mind, Wani, is because when I was professor of education at Lemoyne Owen College, he has a building that looks modern. The building looked like the shit was built in the 90s and was built in like the 20s. And it's very functional. They've been able to upgrade it and put high tech, um, electronics and stuff on it. The building is gorgeous. And, somebody told me, oh, this was built by a black man in the 20s. I was like, you shitting me. This looks like it was built in 2000. So, where does that genius
So
come from?
was he the one that did more residential structures?
Yeah, weren't we talking about him a few months ago, right? In here?
I don't know. Was Wellsing talking about him or was that someone else?
Welsing did bring up, she brought up Paul Revere Williams.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. She did.
Paul Revere Williams, since we're going there, Paul Revere Williams was responsible for building structures in Hollywood, these millionaire mansions, a black man. I think Paul Revere Williams was responsible for St. Jude Hospital in Memphis. He was from Memphis. My point of bringing our brilliant, noble ancestors up is to try to illustrate to you that none of the names I mentioned, nor the hundreds of names I could mention out of Wani's book, exploitation is not a part of their get down. We don't need to kill and exploit people. So, given the fact that what I want y'all to help me to understand, because I just don't got no understanding. Help me understand how foundational Black Americans achieve all this excellence without exploitation, without killing slaves. Columbus put slaves on the ship, and half of his fucking slaves died because he put them on a ship heading to Europe in the winter, butt naked. What did you think was gonna happen? Right?
They're just idiots. But one of the things I noticed is that the other groups seem to cheat, lie, cheat, and steal. They have full blown cheating rings, and for some reason, they don't get busted. Everyone knows they're cheating,
That's
and these colleges won't bust them.
That's where I was going, Wani. That's exactly where I was going. What I was going to say is, how does our ancestors achieve all this excellence without exploiting, without hurting, without killing a fly? Actually helping people, building St. Jude and the like. And we get ostracized and demonized. Um, on the other hand, Europeans fucking killed innocent men, women, and children, sent them on a boat to freeze to death, and they get prestige. Somebody explain
Maybe something's biologically wrong with them,
why
perhaps.
do they get
I don't
praise?
know.
I can't hear you.
Oh, go ahead, Nikki.
Perhaps something's biologically wrong with them, like I keep
No,
saying.
I was saying your um mic, I can't hear it that much.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
Okay.
said perhaps something's biologically wrong with them, like I keep saying.
yeah, and well,
Yes, it is.
Dr. Welsing backs you up, Nikki. But what I'm saying is, why do they get prestige? Why are they looked at with prestige and honor, and we're ostracized? How does that psychological mechanism
I'm
work?
What I'm noticing is that they're crediting themselves for something that's immoral a lot of times or is cheating. They're not saying, hey, wait a minute, we got this information from somewhere else. But it really, if I'm being honest, it looks like they get the information from somewhere else and the first generation says, hey, we went over to Egypt and we got all this information. Now we can do a scale and now we know about math and we were in a mystery school. And then the next generation wants to be a senile and forget about it and try to act like they did something when in fact they didn't do anything except get some of information from someone else.
Right, right, exactly. I just want to understand psychologically how does that work, Wani? Let me give you a good let me give you a good example of that. Name If you were to name the one of the most famous colleges in the world, everybody's heard of Yale, right? How many kids want to go to Yale? Do y'all know that Yale University was founded by Elihu Yale, who was a slaver and a goddamn criminal? According to ChatGPT, Elihu Yale, the founder of Yale University, was a British American colonial administrator who profited from slavery. Um, he was a criminal, and I want to say he killed somebody, like he did some time or some shit. And then his name is on allegedly, and his name is on a building that we call Yale. And kids are just about to kill themselves because didn't get into Yale. How does that work? How does a filthy fucking slave trader create a university that has overwhelming googobs of prestige? What am I looking at? Can y'all hear?
I'm not sure. Like I said, they seem to not have the same moral belief system, even though they're telling us that they have the same morality or they're setting up this standard. And apparently, we're the only ones following it, and everybody else is cheating to get ahead and doing whatever they want to do and just accepting the credit. The other thing is that when a Chinese person is credited for building the railroad, they don't ever say, oh, wait a minute, we only built a few hundred tracks, so a few hundred miles of tracks with other people. Black Americans, of course, built the real railroads.
Facts.
They never say anything. They just gobble up any little bit. And then when we say, hey, wait a minute, we have patented 50,000 inventions. We can't even list them all. It's too many. Between a short period of time. And what were you guys doing over there, Chinese people, since you're so smart? They don't have a comment for that. Where are your Chinese equivalents to HBCUs?
Right?
Did you say that? Nope. You want to go to our schools and you want to also sue us so that we can't go to schools. Um, this is who we're dealing with. These people are extraordinarily devious, and I don't know what they believe in, but they don't have any honesty in them. I don't understand why they just can't say, yes, Black Americans did this, and no, Chinese people didn't build all those did not
They're
build the
anti-black.
it doesn't even make sense. They weren't even on the East Coast where most of the activity was going on. They were on the
Facts.
West Coast before. I mean, we had to push our way west. We had to fight to open up the Western frontier. It wasn't even anything going on out there enough to justify agriculture, movements on train tracks, and all this type of thing. All the action was in the South and the East. What's your name? TY? Did you
It,
want to say something?
Thai lady.
I said anti-black. It's anti-blackness.
Tell us more.
Yeah, like you was talking about, like, okay, if I'm having a hard time like explaining this, like
Take your
they don't want
time.
to acknowledge black people. Yeah, they don't want to acknowledge like black people's involvement with stuff, but they want to come in our spaces. They want to wear our clothes. They want to, like, have hair stores in our spaces and be racist towards us and stuff and want our money. Like you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I often wonder what I was trying to get. I know I was kind of nebulous a minute ago, but what I was trying to get to is I'm begging the question: does do they value criminality? Could that be it?
Yes.
Well, that's what
Mm.
I'm thinking. I'm looking at.
You see how
That's
they glorify those depression era gangsters. They have serial killer trading cards. So yeah, they love Columbus. He's a rapist and murderer and the person who's responsible for millions of people being exposed to infectious diseases, which they enjoy because it got rid of the people that they were going to kill anyway. So yeah, they love criminals. That's why they made a Columbus Day. They know that he was a murderer when they made the day.
mm. But I was
Mm.
wondering if they had a biological. I was wondering. I'm sorry, Ronnie. I was wondering if they had a biological propensity, a biological connection to criminality. I'm not trying to make excuses for them. I'm not trying to use the mental illness card. I'm just trying to diagnose in some way to put a name on what they are.
So you want to explore whether it's nurture versus nature. I think nurture is definitely in play, where they're just training up the next group of people to be um, exploitative. But whether it's in their nature, that's the question. That's the dangerous part because you can retrain people in the next generation, but you can't, you know, you can't do anything if that's their nature to do it. They just seem to like to boost up criminality. That's why they like the mafia. They didn't like the cement boots, uh, corpses all over the place, and they complained, oh, don't have the chowder, don't eat out of that body of water. They would say that, but they still made mobsters, they glorified them. They glorified every type of criminal, um, bikers, anything you can think of. They have glorified it, and they have, zero tolerance for us having criminality. Us of all people should have criminality. We should have more criminality, but we don't. We have a small amount of unorganized criminals that are not a threat to any of these huge international organizations, and yet they have a problem with that. They don't see their own crimes. They don't think that they're committing a crime, but they see everything we're doing as a crime. We could talk about committing crimes. Talking about committing crimes on a song is more deadly to them than them actually committing crimes and throwing bodies in the East River over and over and over again for 100 and some years.
Right. Chris Rock had a joke in the early 2000s about that. He said, I'm paraphrasing, but he said something like, um, "White man makes guns. They kill millions of people every year, and they're great, and they're and he doesn't get in trouble for it." And he said, "Black rapper says gun in a rap song, and there's a congressional hearing." He said that nigga
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
He said that nigga said gun and he rhymed it with fun. We need to pass a law to keep him from saying that. This shit is ridiculous. It's farcical. What are your thoughts for my peoples?
Mm.
It comes down to what I was learning about the axiology of these Europeans. They they were nurtured in the ice, in the most brutal and harsh environment imaginable, and that nature became their god. So violence and trickery and all of that kind of stuff, anything negative, that was their way of life. They could barely grow crops. There wasn't a lot of food to hunt. So the best option was stealing it from bust your neighbor upside the head and take his, and then take his woman and all of his other stuff. That's how they've been.
Hmm.
It's all they know. I'll
Yeah,
land my plane.
Bam, bam, bam. But just like on the Flintstones, bam, bam, bam.
yeah.
Just walk around hitting people upside the head and taking their stuff.
Criminality, ladies and gentlemen, is so ingrained as a norm in European culture that it's even ingrained in our weddings. Let me prove it to you. In the nurture period of European ethnogenesis, do y'all know that a man, when he was choosing a wife, he would go and, like the brother said, hit the girl upside the head and drag her off, and he needed to have somebody to help him do that, to knock her upside the head and drag her off. You want to know what you call that person who helps you knock the woman you want to marry upside the head and drag her off? You call that person your best man. We up here participating in these paradigms and don't even
Rituals.
what'd you say?
Rituals.
Rituals. Yeah,
You
there you go.
know,
Right. And we don't even realize that's an even better word. One is more appropriate because it's satanic. We're participating in these rituals without even knowing what the hell we're doing. That's my best man. Do you know what a best man is? But I digress. Criminality all the way around. So back to economics. European economic success is based upon black exploitation. Dr. Claude Anderson says Europe, whites in America live off on 100% of their wealth and 90% of our wealth. Now, this delineation issue is scaring the dominant society because they are dependent on our exploitation to supplement their income. Wani, can you think of an instance in which Europeans depend upon our or are financially exploiting us?
ooh, I mean, everything that they sell, basically, food, cars, whatever. And then the sad part about it is when we like a product, they will have the nerve to get angry that we've blown the product up or we became associated with it, or maybe somebody said something about it on a song and it made it more popular than it was. They have the audacity to be grumpy or angry about it. At the same time, they would not have been selling those products. So we're responsible for a lot of things becoming popular or trendy. Um, but one of the issues is that in terms of things that are being sold, yet we are huge consumers, and white people do control a lot of these you know, companies. So they're dependent on us. We are huge consumers. And it looks like we are huge consumers more than the average person, even though we're a small population. We have some pretty big spending habits. And we also have, we spend more on charity than the average American. You see,
Facts.
25% more than the average American. So that's right there is interesting that we're looser with our money than these other people. These other people are tightwads. They're not giving to charities. They're not spending as much on things as we are. Of course, because we're a smaller population, it it doesn't show up as much. But just our spending habits alone are pretty interesting. And we have a lot of money that we're spending. We keep going back and forth with Africans, and we have like 5.4 trillion dollars in accumulated wealth. You see, and these other people don't have that kind of money at all,
In their
which is in the
whole
whole
country.
country, in the whole continent.
Right.
Um, Now they may have minerals under the ground, but that's not personal wealth from the citizens. So when you compare Nigerians, they are far the all of the Nigerians' accumulated wealth is nothing. In fact, they said most of the wealth is um, pooled on a handful of people, and everybody else is basically living in poverty or in bad circumstances. 44% of the population in Nigeria lives in poverty. and then the others live in near poverty, and then there's this handful of people with money, so they don't even have any kind of a distribution of funds.
Right. Before we go to Adonis, I wanted to identify one other little fact. Um, like Wani insinuated, the dominant society is parasitic against black foundational Black American finances. But if y'all look back through the tunnel of history, you'll please notice that when foundational Black Americans try to take charge of the distribution of their financial moneymaker, they end up dead. Like Sam Cooke. I mean, Professor James Small said something really interesting about Tupac. If y'all probably could find the interview if you go on YouTube, doing Professor James Small Tupac phone call or death. But Professor James Small knew Tupac's family from the Black Panthers, and so they grew up together as a close group. And Small said Tupac called him right before he got assassinated and said, "Man, I'm about to, take charge of distribution of like the records, of his own records." And Small said, "Be careful, you're going to be going into a certain group of white people's pocket." And Pac said, "I know what I'm doing." And not shortly thereafter, he was dead. Adonis, what are your take on this?
I think you said a really you said a really interesting statement. You said this delineation thing is really messing up uh, with the YT society's finances. And what do you think that we're selling? What do you think that's selling that's messing up their finances? And what immediately came to my head was black culture. Because and it came down to this perspective in my head when I sit down and I say, people say, you watch the NBA. I say, yeah. They say, what team you support? I say, I don't support teams. I support players. I don't care for the team. And when that whole dynamic changes, when we stop supporting black culture, when we delineate and say, no, 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 no. Just because you have dark skin, that doesn't mean you're part of black culture. You have to be a specific black. Well, in European standards, the terminology of black is different than everybody else's. So let's generalize and simplify it down. We have to train people to understand, if you're not of this particular cloth of black, then the value of that black is not the same as the equal as everybody else's. So, like, you can't just wear Nike and all of our gear and talk in our vernacular. People need to start questioning the identity of yourself and say, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Africa. Oh, you're not a real black. Nah. So then the value of that particular look is not the same. And then that's so when you say the delineation thing is, yeah, that's what that's what when we were selling, that's really messing everything up. It's like, yeah, if we delineate to a point where it's like we educate the environment, we educate the people, because the biggest problem is we'll sit down and say, like, oh, white people know what they're doing. And it's like, not all of them. A lot of people in Europe are not educated to the nuances between the diasporas. And a lot of people just get frustrated with the whole talk instead of educating and constantly just educating the ignorant people within their ecosystem. And that's what, like, personally, that's what I like. I think that's one of the things that made me so successful, is because um, I've always tried to educate the other ethnic groups that didn't understand what was going on. And so, yeah, that itself, if once we like this delineation thing, once we start really educating in a modest way of the differences between, just because they have dark skin and they're wearing Nikes and they're talking and listening to hip hop, don't mean they're part of black culture. That's just a knockoff. What do we call it when we used to get those fake movies from the guy who was selling on the street for $5?
Bootlegs.
Bootleg.
Bootleg.
Yeah, there you go.
They're knockoffs.
So yeah, that's what it is. We need to start educating people on the bootleg black culture.
Hey, bootleg FBA.
Well, I wanted to add to that. Now I see a better picture of what you were speaking about, Professor and Adonis Live. Say, suppose we delineate and they have propped up some person from Africa. Now that person is not going to sell the same way because we're going to scrutinize them and say, no, 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 we're not going for that. That's a way we can extremely harm because they do prop people up, and we have harmed them with Cynthia Erivo and all those corny movies that she was in. They can't just put anything up anywhere, and then that does harm them. It's just like if somebody prominent says, I don't want to eat meat, right? It all of a sudden the beef industry is going to get mad. They're going to be like, "What?" So yeah, it's very harmful. Um, but the funny thing about it is when people started saying, "Oh no, I'm vegan." Remember when there was a backlash and you're a tree hugger and all of that stuff is really coming from the beef industry. It's not coming from the general public. They really
Right.
don't care. But guess what? This country sells soy products. It sells soy. And so they just said, "Hey, why don't we just shut up and make all of these meat, fake meat products out of soy?" And then they got very quiet about hating vegans, but the actual people that know about nutrition are not going to eat soy. So now they're mad at people that say don't eat soy because, yeah, don't eat soy. You can have it now and then, but it's not really good for you. It's very, it causes hormonal imbalances, and we have enough of those in the Democratic Party.
Dr. Tyrone Hayes, I think is his name, a PhD of Berkeley University, or, did a study on that one, and he found that plastics and soy. He was able to change the gender of a frog in utero. So, is that messing with the hormonal imbalances of
Oh,
our
that's where the
children?
term soy boy came from?
Oh yeah,
Yes,
right.
um, it definitely does that. It's not a conspiracy. It's just not good to have. I mean, I used to go to this restaurant that was vegan, and the woman was selling soy products, and she said, "Hey, everybody, don't eat." It was so good. This
Hmm.
particular thing she made was just, it had meat eaters lined up to get it. And it was called chimichurri, but it was vegan. And she said, "You know what, guys? You can't eat this every day. Try some other things because you can't have soy every day." So she was an ethical restaurateur.
Oh
Yeah, it
yeah.
makes. I've seen men got breasts, basically from eating soy.
Wow, that's craziness.
They do, yep.
Go ahead, Black.
What's going on, Professor? Warning, Nikki,
What's
everybody in
going
the
on,
room.
bro?
Hey, if y'all ain't tapped into Adonis YouTube, then y'all tripping, cause his content is funny. It's hilarious. But anyway, it's European economics and social order based upon black exploitation. I think it is. Uh, Especially when you look at the basis of what American culture is, you see that it derives from Black Americans, unfortunately, in a parasitic relationship with these small hat people. And as it advanced, every immigrant group has came in and used the same playbook, used Black Americans as its economic base to siphon uh, intellectual property, uh, and everything under the sun when it comes down to us. Cause and when it comes down to construction, like you were saying earlier, Professor, down here in Dallas, Booker T. Washington's daughter, her husband created a plethora of buildings throughout the nation, especially in D.C. And only a few of his buildings still stand. And if you don't know the history of your people and your local community, then I advise everybody to learn that because you'd be surprised. Uh, the basis of your community be standing on the shoulders of black people from the end of Reconstruction and until the early 1920s when the Negro movement came in effect. But we have done great things across this nation. It reminds me of the story Tariq always bring up about the brother who made the airplane. He sent his invention to the Chicago World's Fair and they never made it. But all of a sudden, Wright brothers learned how to fly, and it's many instances. of those situations happening, unfortunately. But we get to the point where we reclaiming our heritage and our legacy, and people can't fight it or debate it because it's rooted in truth. So I just sit back and laugh at these people who debunk themselves when they try to argue with us about a lot of things, because you'll eventually see how uneducated they are for the system to say they're highly educated. Unfortunately, they don't really know too much. Uh, and Adonis, on a lot of his videos, he proved that. That's why I like watching his content, because especially the way he run down these tethers on the other side of the pond, it be hilarious. It reminds me of how I want to be running down tethers in these spaces. It just like when you cool, calm, and collected, and you just giving facts, it ruffles a lot of feathers for some reason, and I love it. I implore everybody to continue to ruffle feathers and stand on business, because they can't stop it.
Yeah, why do they get mad when you tell them the truth? They all of a sudden just almost get violent when you just provide them, present them with facts.
That
It's,
It's
it's just
weird.
frustrating to them.
that goes back to my thesis earlier that I'm really starting to believe that European society is set up to praise criminality. You know, when you're saying something that's true and pure, that's a problem. But you know, like Wani brought up, Al Capone and and that Godfather Part Two made that that criminality look sexy. Our late brother Paul Mooney had a joke about that. He was talking about, it's a dated joke, but he was talking about black men selling drugs, you know, get locked up behind bars. And he said Italian white men killing people have a TV show and they walk around the house in slippers. You know, it's cute to be, a mafia gangster. Brother Adonis, enlighten us.
I was just, yeah, oh yeah, I was just thinking that, first of all, I can't see the other guy that's in the room. I don't know what's going on, but it's not showing. I think it's black or dark. I'm not sure. I can't see his
His
profile.
name is the Black Receipt. He's
Yeah,
yeah.
it's not popping up for me on the screen, but appreciate it. I was just thinking that one of the biggest problems that I've learned is the positive promotion of toxicity within
Right?
black culture. And that's the thing that I've learned has ooh, all right, so this is a long story to break down, but I've recently, when I first got into X Spaces, I jumped into one of these particular rooms with FBA people and black communities and stuff like that. And it was a different environment. It was a different type of conversation. It was more aggressive, black people in our community and stuff. I didn't like it at all. I hated it. I thought the approach was wrong. I thought it wasn't beneficial for the productive of our message or what we wanted to achieve. So then me experiencing that from my own people, I was just like, you know what, I don't want to do that. And then because of that, it was that and the thought of the Israelites, of how they conduct themselves and how they handle these particular cultural conversations. And then I said, you know what, I'm not going to be aggressive and I'm not going to be belligerent or even be in any type, unless they trying to cross lines on physical diabolical situations, then I got to stand up. But when it came to these conversations, I said, oh, they want me to be the angry black person. And every single time I get into these situations, and that's when I realized, I started thinking like, oh, white people got us fucked up. We thought that we was standing up to ourselves by fight the power, yeah. And we saw all those aggressive people being aggressive. But when we thought about Black Panthers, we thought about black strong people standing up and pushing back. But we didn't remember the history of the all Black Panthers in suits. We didn't remember the Black Wall Streets of how everybody used to be all put together and took in and catered nicely and prestige, and all of that history was erased, but we saw people fighting back in the most aggressive way. And then that's when I realized this whole the next change that's going to happen in the future is when we start having these conversations and we start doing this thing, is taking away the aggression. I can't. People ask me, I don't know how you do it. How do you have these conversations with these people and not want to choke them up? I say I can't, and this is gonna sound crazy, but I say, how can I feel some type of way about somebody who? Now I'm gonna generalize this statement, and I don't mean it in the way I'm saying it. I just can't figure out a better way to say it. So it's gonna sound crazy to anybody else but that's not my intentions. I'm just letting y'all know right now. How can I feel aggressively upset about somebody that I know in this particular situation I'm better than? I know where I come from. I know where my people come from. I know my history. I know my lineage. How
Woo!
can I
Preach.
feel? You can't make me feel any type of way. You just look like a child, a baby, and it's funny to me. Okay, so you get upset, you try to trigger me, but we're on two different levels. So I'll let you say that, and then I'm gonna ask you a question. And while I'm asking you a question, I'm so smart. I'm so much advanced because they haven't been dealing with white people like we've been dealing. I feel like we got the most advanced, mentally strategical white people in the world. I really feel like that, especially from being in Europe, because these people can't see the punchline coming and can't see me setting them up for it. And I think it's so easy. I'm just like literally walking them through it, and they're walking while putting their foot in their mouth, and I'm just laughing at the end of it. And the thing is, and this is what I sit down to say, it's like it didn't take me a long time to figure out how to do this. It just took me a way to figure out I don't want to be the aggressive Israelite looking black American person saying, no, you got to learn No, I don't want you to learn my history. Even when I have these conversations, it's not about them. The person I'm talking to is not even about Africans. It's not about UK people, Caribbeans. It's not about none of them. I'm making these videos for the other ethnic groups that are paying attention. That's why I'm asking very simple questions that other ethnic groups can pay attention because I'm educating everybody else around the world and they think it's
Oh
about
my
them.
God, Adonis, you need to consider classes and therapy for foundational Black Americans. The
Facts.
way that you just put that together, I need to talk to you on the back end one day.
Definitely, definitely. This is like look. This game, the way this game needs to be played, it needs to change. Everything needs to change, and in order for us to make this move faster, the way we see this needs to change. And I guarantee you, like if everybody in our community thought the way I thought about handling this, we'll be able to push this agenda faster, like way faster.
Hey,
But yeah,
Adonis, if you notice, that's really what makes everybody mad. The cockiness that we have and the pride. Even white people, like they have the same wit that we have here in America, but our white people they get more frustrated when we bring out the cockiness and we start stunning on them. Even in sports, that's why they take away the celebrations because they hate the cockiness. It's an energy they can't tap into.
Oh yeah.
At first when Adonis was speaking, I'm not gonna lie, I'm just gonna be honest. I was going back to is he talking about is this gonna be something like the nonviolent era? Is that what he's trying to teach us? And then I start understanding it, like when people are training for a sport, they have to take their mind and place it somewhere else because their body can only do so much. The rest has to be done with the way that you see what you're telling your body to do and the way you see it in your mind. So I do get what you're saying, and I appreciate it so much, Adonis.
Yeah, and Adonis, I appreciate you giving more evidence to support my thesis that criminality is praised within European social paradigm. You brought up the Black Panthers. Now, if you think about what the Black Panthers did, what did they do to get them all caught up? They did something honorable and decent. Ladies and gentlemen, what the history does not reflect is the history books don't reflect is a Black Panther. Then they have a lunch program. They walk around feeding people.
Lunch
It's called WIC.
program, school program,
It's
and
only
a
sheets.
paramedic program.
Yeah, it was called WIC.
Come on with it, Kanye. Educate us right quick.
Yeah, so the Black Panther Party, from Chicago out to Oakland, they used to grow food in those gardens, and they would use those same gardens to feed the kids. They were all about self sustainability. They also, what people don't know, is put pressure on local gang members, pimps, and all of that shit to clean up the streets. Right? It was a way to do everything. Um, if you ever watched this show, Judas and the Black Messiah, a lot of that's talked about. When we talk about community crime in the black community, it was typically organized. See, when the mafia, they clean it up for everybody in those movies, but that's not how it was. So when you had guys like Lucky Luciano, um, Joe the Boss Mazzaria, those guys were eating up off their own people. When they first came over there, the Sicilians wasn't accepting anybody who wasn't Sicilian, right? So if you was Italian or whatever the fuck that is over there, they were taking money, protection, extortion rackets. And after a while, they started to venture out, and they still had a thumb hold over their own community. And if you listen to them now, they'll tell you that's not the case, and that really was. That's why a lot of those Italian people, like Rudy Giuliani, reason why he has such a vendetta against the mob, and he'll tell you, they extorted his family. It disgusted him. Why you think an Italian American got up and broke them up? So they will romanticize what they had going on. They got in the bootleg and they controlled the docks, the unions. They muscled their way into the Teamsters and the protection rackets. They did so much evil shit. They even had a bunch of contracts with the city. New York City, they had New York City concrete by hostage. It cost them 10 times as much to build a building in New York, not because of the city, because the mafia was eating up all the profits. These people are Satan. But you take a guy selling some weed in the Bronx and they want to make it sound like he's the biggest kingpin ever. Yeah. If you ever look at those old hearings when they had this guy's name is Crazy Joe Gallo, they called him to testify before Congress. And he's cracking jokes with the press. He's like, yeah, it's a good rug for a crapshoot. They're laughing and shit. I'm talking about this is the United States Congress doing this. And they cracking jokes. But they told Nicky Barnes that, hey, we're gonna lock you the fuck up if you don't do this shoot. You know what I mean? And made him seem like he was the biggest criminal when you had him coming up under Joey Gallo and what's the other guy name? Luke Cages and stuff. So they had a lot of criminal shit. Al Capone, the St. Valentine's Day massacre. These people murdered, what is it, 15 people? They pretended like they was cops, told them to line up against the wall, shot them in the shit with Tommy submachine guns. So
Wow.
it can go on and on about the Chicago outfit. Al Capone was the very definition of corruption. He had half the cops in in Chicago on his payroll. Like it was so much evil shit they were doing. Uh, I'm sorry, but they'll demonize us the second we say anything, and then they'll make movies about these mobsters, Frank Nitti, Pretty Joe Gallinger, and all this other shit. They give these people names, Bonnie and Clyde. These people were murderers, not just regular murderers. They're murdering law enforcement. Back the
Wow.
blue wall of signs. This is the people that's who they killed. They robbed banks. They stole from hardworking. I'm sorry. I don't want to go on this rant, but yeah, it's a lot of evil shit that they did. Even the Irish mob, the Jewish mob. You can go on and on about this shit for days.
Yeah, it's like some type of antisocial personality disorder gene that's
Mm.
been passed down to all of them.
But they teach it to each other. Literally, the guy who founded Las Vegas, right? A guy by the name of Bugsy Siegel. Him, Meyer Lansky were in the Jewish mob. They literally had an organization called Murder Inc., which was the execution enforcement of the commission. And they was like, you know what? You murdered enough people for us. Here goes some money, start Las Vegas. And then when he
Wow.
got too big, they murdered him.
That's crazy. It's like the system of morality is turned inside out, man. Go ahead, Uncle Elroy.
Oh, all right, man. How you doing, man?
What's
Y'all
going
hear
on,
me all
bro?
right?
Yes, sir.
You know, just living, chilling. Uh, yeah, I couldn't agree more. Oh, damn, no that. I couldn't agree more with that guy's point earlier and perspective or experience. I feel like I had a very similar experience, and that's what I was gonna say. Like, yesterday I spoke with Tyreek, and I was gonna kind of touch on that a little bit, but also ask you guys kind of a question. Like, yesterday I spoke with Tyreek, but I spoke with him in a challenging way, not as someone that's an active enemy to him, but someone that's trying to approach his, cause in like a rational, like understanding type of way. And
What
like
do you
we went back
disagree
and
with?
forth. I mean, in general, I forgot like specifically.
Were
I
you
think
the
I
guy that
said,
he accused? Were you the guy who he accused of being on his stomach last night?
no, I don't think so. It was fairly early on. I think I basically
Oh,
my argument started with by taking a bunch of examples of evil and saying that the cause is white supremacy isn't giving the devil his due. And what I meant by that was like I feel like evil as a whole. isn't majority white supremacy caused. And we really didn't unpack it too much. We went back and forth a little
Well,
bit,
He
and
well,
you know,
he the one that was trying to say us saying white supremacy making people hate white people.
I'm
no,
tr-
like I mean,
I'm trying to
fair enough.
understand how, what does that have to do with European economic and social order being based upon black exploitation? Could you connect those dots for me?
I'm sorry. Is that the topic of this space?
Yes.
I think so.
Oh, okay, my bad. Then that's off topic. No, I don't. That's not even within topic. I'll just pause my mic or mute myself. I just wanted to reflect on that a little bit, but maybe that's not the best time because of the topic. And now I'll listen to you guys talk about whatever I'm sorry, the topic is, and then if I have an actual question, I'll
Can I
raise
ask
my
you
hand
something
again.
though?
Yeah,
Can
of
I ask you
course, man.
something?
Why not? Yeah.
So what made you so comfortable to come in here and not speak on the topic?
Oh, what do you mean so comfortable?
You came in here and you just didn't speak
Yeah,
on the topic.
Cause he been
I
sitting
didn't.
in
I didn't even
five
read the
rooms
Hold on,
title.
Black.
talking.
Hold on, Black.
Because I didn't read the title, but
Yeah, I'm
I
saying,
felt
but you came
comfortable
directly in here to
coming
talk
here
about what you wanted to talk about. Why?
because I've been coming into this space and Tariq space for like a couple weeks now, out of respect and interest through a friend,
Got you.
and
So out of
my
respect, you come in
experience.
here and not speak on what we speaking on because you
No,
wanted
no,
to
no.
talk
I've
about
spoken on
something.
topic before. I just usually like Tariq spaces are usually just general, like,
It's
yo,
not
my
Tariq space
space.
though.
Right, I understand that. With this space, there's usually a topic, and as I listen, I hear what the topic is, and I try to, engage
All
with
right. So
whatever the
let me
topic
rephrase the
is.
question. Let me rephrase the
Go
question.
ahead.
What made you feel so comfortable to come into this space and just not speak on the topic?
I mean, hold on, let me think about my answer here. 1 second. What made me feel so comfortable in asking the question that was irrelevant to the topic? I guess. I guess it's what's the word I'm looking for? Selfishness, almost like an ego thing.
There you go. Well, congratulations, you figured it
I
out.
mean, I'm realistic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I try to be fair.
Yeah,
My bad.
yeah, yeah, yeah. When you speak off topic, you kind of derail the space. We're gonna move on to
I
Capone.
apologize.
What's on your
Yeah, I
mind,
apologize.
Capone? Come on, Capone. What's on your mind, bro?
I'm still bringing him up.
Oh,
He's
okay.
up now.
You got the mic, Capone.
How the family doing, Professor, Sister Wani, Sister Nikki? Love y'all. Appreciate the class tonight. But yeah, to go off what Brother Daniel was saying about these people in these crime mobs. I took on that name of Capone a while ago because of what I did for my community back in the days. I love the way Al Capone did philanthropy. No matter what he did in the world, he had food programs for all his community before he stuck off and killed somebody. And I appreciated that out of their culture. And I love that for them because they stuck on code and knew how to take care of their people. Even though they did some vile shit, their people was taken care of. And I like taking notes out of their book, how the Black Panthers did it, how other Black organizations group did it, and I'm glad we back on that. That's what we need to do as a people. And Sister Wani, I messaged you because I needed a copy of your book. I had a problem checking it out on my PayPal, but yeah, love, peace, reparations, delineations, and deportations. I love y'all.
Oh yeah, much love, much love. Earlier yesterday we identified that prostitution, according to Dr. Howard Zinn, was uh, brought in large, in no small portion by Italian immigrants to the United States. I'll find a scholarship. Sure, I found it. So, according to Dr. Howard Zinn, page 267 of A People's History of the United States, uh, Dr. Zen says women, quote, women became servants and prostitutes. He's referring to Italians and the Irish immigrants that came over in 1880 and 1890. So back to the topic, given the fact that it's a known fact that the prostitution rings were really popped off in America and initiated by Italian immigrants, why do our sisters get the blame in the media or get the scar in the scarlet letter of prostitution? That's part of this system that's upside down. This system glamorizes European skew ideology, and it demonizes us. um, Isabella Wilkerson said that's a scapegoating tactic, is um, to look for somebody to bear the sins of the collective, so that the dominant society can act pure. But given the fact we're delineating, that tactic is not working. And like I mentioned yesterday, we're looking at some type of systematic collapse. What's on your mind, the black?
Yeah, I was gonna add, uh, before Al Capone became the great drug lord or bootlegger and gangster, most his clubs he got from Jack Johnson. So like still that foundation that we want to give to these people, minus the debauchery, killing each other. Like we made like the bootlegging business like a regular enterprise without all the hostility and trying to take out the competition, because we thrive off of competition. That's what makes us want to pour in and make a product even better to beat the competition. That's the main reason why uh, Uncle Nearest made the great Tennessee whiskey. So it's like if we don't continue to try to search for the source of the root of a lot of these things that we do, or that a lot of things that the white people do or praise, we won't understand why it's a certain hostility for certain things, and the reason why they put in enforce certain laws during certain time periods. Because the more you dive in deep and like through the pages of time, you'll see it's an adverse effect for everything that we do great. Because it's either they're gonna make laws to stop us from doing it and making it into a new industry until they can find somebody to come take that spot and monetize it to make us just a consumer base, or they just destroy it in all and just make it uh, something that cause you to go to jail. If I want to be blunt and frank about it, because it's unfortunate that we live in a society where they demonize the greatness that we try to make when we're just at our best and to ourselves.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's we're looking at some type of massive agenda. Professor Noam Chomsky wrote a book on it that I've been saying for a year now that I'm gonna have a space on. It's a real complicated book. It's called Manufacturing Consent, and basically, Dr. Chomsky argues that the media machine creates a massive system based off of what's the guy's name? Skinner, B.F. Skinner's research, um, to manufacture attitudes, negative attitudes towards foundational Black Americans, and while in the same breath manufacturing positive attitudes towards white Americans. It's a very deep book. I might have a space on that. It's going to be a minute though. Capone, what's on your mind?
Oh no, just to go off Brother Black's points with the whole bootlegging and criminal culture, they used a lot of us in the speakeasies to get their liquor in because we was the best bootleggers. We were the best nighttime drivers and all that.
Also the
And like he said,
entertainment.
Al Capone's club, yeah, Al Capone's club with Jack Johnson, he took over all Jack Johnson clubs because they didn't want him to own. All those clubs Al Capone had came from Jack Johnson.
But that's
Once they found out, oh, go ahead, Professor.
no. I was gonna say that goes to the point of the that right there goes to the topic. Is European economic and social order based upon black exploitation? What I'm hearing,
Yes.
yeah,
But he was still he had Jack Johnson as a partner because of his fame though.
right.
Even though he undercutted him on the money. Yeah, go
He
ahead.
was exploiting Jack Johnson. You know what I'm saying?
Give them the
Yeah,
access
yeah,
to
I
white
yeah.
mean,
Facts,
cooch.
facts.
like we discussed earlier before the room, nobody wants to see two cornball white boys boxing. But what they do want to see is someone from a slave lineage that can finally just open up and punch a white man in the face. Even if they're white, they still want to see it. It's like part of their built in fear. The biggest fear they've ever had is someone coming at them from our lineage. So these matchups cause so much excitement, you know, and then they got into the other sports as well. They want to see a matchup, and you know that's true. No one really just go look at 1800s boxing. Look at those guys. You're not going to want to do it. It's
You
bad
could look at
enough. It's bad enough that they had to be the other side of the boxing match, but um, the matchups you want to see was those guys. The matchups you want to see was the Negro Leagues cracking those balls out of the park. And what were
right.
they going to want to do with them? Those are the matchups that people wanted to see. They really didn't want to see, you know, themselves against themselves. And even when we had the other matchups, when Black Americans started to leave baseball, and this is before I understood delineation, or this is way before when you had the Sammy Sosa and the Mark McGuire matchup, right? And everyone was looking at that. He never quite made it. It wasn't like a regular matchup. And the reason why Sammy Sosa could never really compete in the same way that a Black American can is because he wanted to be white the whole time. He wanted to be a red-headed white man like Mark McGuire. That's not a
Wow.
good matchup. That's not a black and white polar opposite matchup. That's a black and brown. That's an Afro Latino. That's a black and brown matchup. I mean, that's a white and brown matchup. It's not a black and white match. That's why it's not a polar opposite. The energy was off. And that's what people didn't understand. And there was less of like from the black perspective, yes, we rooted for Sammy Sosa because he was of African descent and perceived as like us because we didn't know any better. But we still knew that he wasn't going to be like one of our people, but we didn't articulate it. These matchups need to be Black Americans and white. It doesn't matter which kind of white. It can be a Russian, it could be just any kind of white uh, will do. And that's what the people pay for. That's what they pay for. They don't pay to see Hispanic people boxing each other or two white boys boxing each other. So we created the sports empires based on the excitement of our presence.
Right, right. That's so true. If you think about football, allowing black men to get on, and you mentioned baseball. That maybe even baseball is a better example than football. But being from Alabama, football is that's my world. So, um, black men revolutionized football. It was no turning back once you seen what black men could do on the gridiron, as they used to call it in Alabama, on the field. And back to the topic of the point, football, the system of football exploits the hell out of these young men. I mean, at University of Alabama, if you get hurt while you're on a team, that's your ass. Your blackness and your athletic prowess is being exploited by the system of white supremacy.
Hey, Professor, the greatest
Go ahead.
like example of that is a little South Park episode of Eric Carmen and the little babies. He going to the college college people and asking them how they monetize the sport and shit to get them as slaves. And he said, "Oh, you don't call them slaves, so you call them student athletes. That's how like that's the loophole." Like
Wow.
and it,
Yeah, but it's true.
yeah,
No,
it really
it's true.
is, and it's funny because like when you break down the Columbine, that's basically what they used to do when they used to sell the slaves. They measure them, they oil them up, make sure they all good and greased, and they see how much stamina they have. And I feel like the main reason why they pushed us out of baseball was the Bo Jacksons and the Dennis Rodmans. I mean, in the uh, what's the name from from the Cowboys in 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 the 49ers, but they was doing things that was revolutionary to the game. Like Bo Jackson was doing
Yeah.
backflips, catching balls out the sky, and then going to play football at the same time.
Y- Bo Jackson was amazing.
Yeah, him him and Deion Sanders. Like Deion Sanders,
Yep.
he playing two sports at the same time, making two industries fight against each other over him. And he was taking whoever
Yeah.
gonna give him the most money, and they didn't like that. So they made force him to play one sport. Yeah, I feel like we'll still have multiple like multi athletes that play different sports at once if they didn't stop uh Deion Sanders from doing that. Cause if you look
Mhm.
at it like through most young men, they play multiple sports when they grow up, so it be hard for them to choose, and they try to push us out of baseball because they don't have no salary cap. You get as much money as you want, so
Right.
you
People don't realize that.
yeah. So that's of course they want you to play in a sports that'll make you limit how long your longevity in the sport, because running backs they don't last that long. Quarterbacks they get the highest paid, but we just now starting to get into that position because that was always seen as a white man position. On
Totally gate kept.
yeah,
Totally.
Mhm.
so
That's DEI.
yeah, this really is.
All those coaches, manager
Preach,
jobs,
Ronnie.
I
DEI.
feel like golf is
How would they
DEI, really.
participate? It's like, why is this guy the coach? He hasn't even played a game before. You already know who
Never
the
played
coach
Never.
should
professional
be.
ball.
His
You
daddy
know
just
who the
was a
quarterback
coach.
should be. Every level of everything to do with those sports should have us in it. But those are DEI positions that they gatekeep for themselves because they're not qualified to do any. How can a person who hasn't played the game be more qualified than a boatload of retired athletes that are sitting at home watching the game? It's ridiculous.
Right.
You know they're going to be a better coach.
I've been watching
Somebody
niggas play
is a good
forever
coach.
since my granddaddy was raising niggas to play football. What you
Right,
mean?
right, exactly.
Yep. They even bred people a certain way so that they can play certain sports. They know
So we
exactly what they're
give
doing.
them They do. We give them DEI on all the sports. We give them DEI on our music. Yeah, y'all ain't got nothing to do with nothing. What you haven't made if white people made music, what's the music from Australia then? What hot poppin' yeah.
But Justin
The beat
Bieber, Justin Bieber, he's not being assisted anymore. I don't know if you saw that post I put up. He tried to make his own music, and he
what?
seems like he's going out sad right now. He can't. He's been doing R&B for
Didn't his
years and
eye roll out
years.
of his head that
He
time?
is depressed right
Yeah.
now.
What's going on now? So just think about the countries where white people have been living and think about the music genres they've created. The only thing I remember coming out of Australia is the Bee Gees, and they came over here to sing disco songs with Donna Summer. So what music genres did they make again? I'm confused.
Right. Exploitation. It's just like what brother Paul Mooney said. He said, foundational Black Americans invent all the inventions, and the dominant society, white people, invent the patent office. You know, it's a hot mess. Mama, what's on your mind? Can you hear me, Mama?
Mama.
Howdy. Can
Hey,
you hear
Oh,
me?
hey, yeah, I hear
yes.
you. What's up?
Okay. Nothing much, just listening in. I had an exciting week, but it's too early to talk about it right now.
What are your thoughts upon is European economic and social order based upon exploitation?
Absolutely.
Tell me about it.
Well, I mean, I've always said, I mean, if you see on my page, I posted on my hashtags that white supremacy is cannibal culture. So, Europeans naturally are white supremacists.
Now I wanted to ask a quick question about sundown towns. Is it true or is it not true that these sundown towns existed and black people went over to shop? and had to be out of town before sundown. Is that true?
Well, I know for a fact there's one in outside of my hometown of Birmingham called Coleman, and I've seen the signs that say, if you're black, I would say it was a rhyme, but yeah, they were like, you need to be out by sundown if you're black. That's and the sad,
And
yeah, go ahead.
we were there shopping. Is that what we're saying? Is that what is that what I'm
No,
hearing?
I think they
Well,
was just
We had
driving
our
through.
dumb ass.
Why would they shop there?
Did we have our dumb ass over there shopping?
No, I think it was
well,
Is
like
that what I'm
if you were
hearing?
driving through
well,
that town.
well, no, no, no. It's not
Or
Memphis.
were we driving through or were we shopping and oh, let me hurry up and get all my hammers and nails and other things.
Well, this is it. Huntsville has NASA, like NASA. It's a NASA museum, and Huntsville's really nice. It's right outside of Coleman County. So if you're coming from Birmingham going to Huntsville to the Air and Space Museum, you go through Coleman, and the police will be waiting for you and stuff like that. So that's the one that I can verify.
Okay, but what about the shopping?
Shopping goes on in Huntsville.
And we were shopping there?
I wasn't shopping there, but I was going to the Air and Space Museum.
Because I'm wondering how long this accepting disrespect while pain has been going on because it seems to be very ingrained to go into an Asian store, be treated like a piece of shit, and then come out telling me about it. Like, why is my cousin telling me every month or so, I went into this? Like, why did you go in there?
Yeah, keep going
That
into those stores. Keep letting them.
Maybe they like torture.
they must because this is a woman with a vehicle who can drive to any store. She is a housewife. She doesn't have to go to the dollar store with the angry Indian woman. This is just some like part time thing she does to be abused, apparently. I'm not understanding it.
Actually, it's kind of sad, Wani. I have my one of my great aunts. We call her Eula. Aunt Eula used to go to a place in Alabama called Cotton's. It was a store that sold, the old church lady hat place. They sold church lady stuff, and she would go to Cotton's, and them hats would be like $300 and $400. But she would go to Cotton's along with the other black church ladies to buy hats that they would show off on Sunday. And the owner would call him, would tell him, "You're ugly. Won't know why you need that hat. You're ugly anyway." And we'd be telling her, "Man, don't you go there, man. Why you going there and letting them talk to you like that?" So I'm saying that to say it's some type of psychology with that. Um, they would say the church ladies would often say, "Oh, he didn't mean nothing by that. He didn't mean nothing." It's some type of psychology. It's a
Think it was
damage
a
there.
form of reverse psychology.
Hmm. Yeah, he didn't mean it. He said you're ugly. Why would he say that?
Wish she wasn't ugly, but
What does he mean if he doesn't mean that?
I don't know. It's
I would
sometimes.
have left because I would have been, well, shit, if I'm ugly, God don't like it. I guess we
Mm,
gotta leave here. I would have
you
left.
gotta you gotta do them. You gotta just do them kind of dirty sometimes when they keep doing you dirty. He could have looked at those hats and come up with an even better style of hats and opened up a store right next door to them since they want to
Mm-hmm.
call him ugly.
Hey, I
Or,
was.
or I would have asked him, is there any black hats that we look good in instead of all these white hats? I would have said, is there any black hats?
Hey, if I was a little boy back then, but you know what I'm saying. If I was a teenager, I would have walked up in that bitch with a dozen eggs and fucking hit his hats, threw him at them hats, man. That's how you do that. Hey, the little kids now, what they had at the little mask, they say no face, no case. But
For real, for real.
hey, we don't condone violence on this
Not at all,
this
not at
channel.
all.
Pay
Metaphorically,
You
by
don't have to
alleged,
say that. Nobody thinks
metaphorically,
you're
alleged,
violent. Nobody thinks you're violent.
We don't condone egg
thoughts.
throwing. I do,
Yeah,
but
Yeah,
just
we don't.
but we
metaphorically,
and we
alleged.
don't condone throwing eggs when
I
we're
can't
having an
afford
egg
eggs to
shortage.
throw them, and I'm a
Yeah.
vegan, so what else can I throw?
And my check
I
late,
got
I
me
gotta
some
pay my
rocks.
my lawyer fees. So yeah,
I'm
alleged,
throwing rocks.
metaphorically.
Rocks are cheaper and more effective.
Yeah, they are. That's a
Hey,
fact.
family, if you
We
are
gonna throw
enjoying
white
this
rocks.
space, family, if you are enjoying this space, please give it a share. Please share this on your timelines and in your back channels. We appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to bring your attention to in the Jumbotron momentarily. I will put Nikki the God's Cash App and Wani Spot's Cash App. Show them love for their scholarship. Wani, do you have a link to your book? Um,
Oh yeah,
I
Sister Warning, check your
I put
message.
a
I
link
just
to her
sent.
book up. I
did you
put
there's
get
the
the
I
book?
got
Amazon
it.
link.
I had trouble with my PayPal, but I did send the cash out to you.
I I
Did
put
you
the
get the book
Amazon
yet?
link up. Do you want them to post Amazon or what?
No, they
Which
can.
one do you?
I can send them a PDF.
Okay,
We can do it directly because it's too complicated on Amazon.
Okay, well, on Wani's book,
understood.
you know, if you want a copy of Wani's book, which I've read is brilliant, go ahead and get in contact with her. In addition, if you want a copy of my book, look at my Cash App will be in the Jumbotron shortly. Put $25 on it and put your full address and full zip, and I will mail it out to you shortly. All right, we're going to get a couple more speakers, and we're going to call it a night. We're going to end early tonight. Um, let's see, Dolo. We're gonna do Dolo. Actually, I skipped over. Was that Frost? I'm guessing your name's Frost, brother. I see a snowflake. I don't know what your name is.
His, his name is Cold Blooded.
All right, Mr.
Okay,
Coldblood.
well then I guess
Cold
if ain't nobody else gonna say nothing, go let Cash go.
Cash, go ahead, bro.
Cash. I didn't even see
I
Cash.
didn't see him either. He snuck up
What's
here.
What
up?
What's up, brother?
Hey, Cash.
man, I came up all out of context and everything. I heard y'all was speaking about sundown towns. I just wanted to shout out the Green Book.
You know,
Thank you.
we need another a green book, Cash. Somebody needs to bring that back.
Somebody did, didn't they? What's his name? You
Y'all
know,
seen Lovecraft
he
Country?
has one.
The
Uh,
sci-fi TV series that we did with
no.
Majors.
No,
We
I
need a
missed it.
boy. We need a boycott book or app, which is what
Have,
I want.
Somebody
have you
was
seen?
working on a boycott app, but yes, I
Yeah.
agree, Juan. It's
And then
time
when
with
you walk in the store, it beeps and says beep beep beep. There's some anti-Black American behavior that went on in this location. GPS blares off in your pocket.
right,
I
right,
know
right.
Black Truth working on
Yeah,
Black
Right.
Black Truth.
Farmers
That's it.
like almanac like book where you can go to like black owned stores
Mhm.
and black owned farms and stuff like that.
Yes.
Yeah, but we're in a point now, ladies and gentlemen, where we're starting to delineate that type of green book and the app, the app one he was talking about. It's time we start implementing that because one way to really get our point across is economic warfare. I'm from
Mm-hmm.
I'm from Alabama, and you know what I'm saying, I'm gonna let you land your plane, Cash, but I do want to say that boycotting people with your money works. The golden generation of foundational Black Americans shut Montgomery down with that bus boycott, brought them to their motherfucking knees. Imagine what we could get done if we stopped shopping. If we just said we're not gonna buy XYZ for a month. Man,
Didn't we
man,
get Labor Day from that? What wasn't it a holiday we got because they were kissing up so hard?
I gotta look up Labor Day. I'm not
They were
sure.
so happy we brought our black asses back up on that bus and they could get their little money together. They did something
Girl,
else.
Wani.
We put their asses in. Oh yeah, I love that. I am a firm believer in I have been boycotting things so hard. I forgot I was boycotting it.
I
And when
was
I
3 years
boycott you, you
old.
are done. I ain't never going back in.
I can boycott the heck out of something. I can if I say that I'm not going to deal with something or somebody or something, I will they will be it will be invisible to me. I could just walk away from it.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Huntsville, Professor, I believe you were speaking on Huntsville. I spent half of my life in Huntsville, actually, and I'm sure you're very well aware of uh, Von Braun,
Yep,
the
Werner
Nazi
von
leader.
Braun. Yeah.
Yep, yep. So yeah, it was just it's interesting that you spoke on how Coleman is, near Huntsville and all that type of
Now, were people shopping
historical
over there?
preserve. I
Mhm.
don't know. I'm only 31, so
Oh,
back then, I wasn't really aware of
I'm
it. I
I,
spent
I'm
half
gonna
of my
make
life there.
sure. I've gotta research that to make sure
But
how
yeah,
sad that is.
but Wanda, you are right. The people do in that part of Alabama. Basically, in Alabama, you got only a couple of cities that got real malls. Birmingham got a couple of them. Birmingham's the biggest city, but up north Alabama, the only mall is Huntsville, and Huntsville got like a real nice mall with like high end stuff. So a lot of people come from far and wide to go to Huntsville's mall. So you got to drive through Coleman, and man, to this day, I hear you don't drive through Coleman at night.
Yeah, they have a mall called Bridge Street, pretty high end mall.
Yeah, it's
You
real
know
nice.
how you change that? You
Shop
you
online.
no, yeah, that's what I do. But you pit people against each other. You say, nope, we're not driving through that town because that town is a sundown town, and you white boys over here at the mall better get it together, or else we're not going to drive over there. Pit them against each other. But no, I'm not driving. No, I'm not putting up with anything. You're getting one dime. I'm not suffering at all, ever. I'm not going to suffer on any purchase.
Right, right.
And that doesn't mean that we can't get our hair products or wigs or weave or whatever or hair creams and stuff. I order a lot of things off of offline, and I just say forget these stores. I just order them wholesale. Sometimes you just got to order things in bulk. You don't have to drive to these people's shop and get followed around and profiled. You shouldn't have to pay people to mistreat you.
Facts. Fact. It's time out for that. It's time out for paying for mistreatment. We're gonna get a couple more speakers. Queen, what's on your mind?
If I may.
Oh, I'm sorry, Queen.
What's up, family?
I'm sorry, Queen.
Okay.
Cash didn't land his plane. My bad. Cash, go ahead and land your plane.
Yeah, I was saying I came in out of context. I didn't know if y'all were being facetious about sundown towns, but I wanted to shout out the Negro Motorist Green Book. I love the Life movie, especially the scene about the whites only pies and 35 miles to the next town. That really like ingrained into my brain what that situation was like and how there was a dichotomy from the north to the south and stuff like that. Um, the
Oh, you
Lovecraft
said
Country.
whites only pies?
Yeah, in the movie Life, they are driving through they drive through a neighborhood. They
Hey,
stop
that's
at a
my
restaurant.
shit. Hey, I love that movie.
They
Hey,
stop at
yeah, that's some nigga pies.
they stop at a segregated restaurant. They go in there and they're black folks from New York, so like they got money and everything. And these white folks never really seen black folks like that, like that
And they
can
was
read, for
bootlegging,
example.
getting money.
Right? He was able to read his name tag. He's like, "How do you know my name?" He's like, "I can see it right there on your shirt." And he was like, "Look, we just want to buy some pie and stuff real quick." And the white lady was like, "We don't serve Negroes in here. Like, it's 35 miles to the next town." And he was like, "But we got
Bye.
money." Like, and he's like, "How much gonna cost to turn them whites only pies into nigga pies?" And the white lady's like, "How about I turn y'all into nigga pie?"
Uh oh.
35 miles, 35 miles, you said.
35
Hey,
miles to the next town. That's what she told him.
That was so
that movie's
weird
hella funny.
because people would pay my grandmother, white people would try to come through the front door of my grandmother's house. She said, oh, hell no, you come around the back. You're not talking to me from the front door. She was very insane, but whatever. That was funny. She had the white people sneaking on the side of the house, asking her to make them food. So why
Wow.
would I want to eat a white person's pie
Right.
when they're begging for our pies?
Yeah, our food tastes so much better.
Hey, but there's a show called Lovecraft Country that showcases sundown towns
Hey,
too.
I
that's
love
my
this show.
shit.
Right?
Lovecraft Country.
It's episode one too. You can't miss it, right?
Did you watch them? What about them? One and two, season one
I
and
love
two.
that show too.
Yeah,
Hey,
where she smacked the white lady.
hey, my lady got me on some shit called From. That shit's off the chain.
Oh, did
I
I watch
seen that.
that?
I was, hey, is
Uh,
that good? I seen that.
Yep.
Man, that shit's off the chain.
All right, I'm about to watch that shit when I get back home.
but I'm sorry. One last thing, if I may. I wanted to shout out the FreedmenNation.org's boycott list for those who are talking about boycott, especially those who are reparationists. Don't want to keep up with people speaking against our reparations claim, businesses that need to be held accountable. Shout out to that boycott list. Oprah did a TV episode where she went to Forsyth County. I don't know if Forsyth got brought up in the conversation if we was talking about sundown towns. That was what Oscarsville flooded, and to this day, Oprah herself couldn't even stay in that city that night. She had to leave town after she filmed her TV episode, which was all racist, saying that they wanted to keep their town white. And I'm like, bro, is this America? I'm talking about during the times of Oprah, like more recently. And then you mentioned Montgomery, the Montgomery bus boycott. Every time I hear that, I often want to shout out that we went from the Montgomery bus boycott to the Montgomery brawl. To the Montgomery
Right.
brawl. I just wanted to shout that out. Thank you for letting me speak.
Oh yeah, you're more
Thank
than
you,
welcome,
Cash.
brother. Thank you for your
Speaking
contribution.
of freedmen, what do you guys think's the chances that Trump could get Black Americans labeled as freedmen back on the census, seeing as he's so off the hinges, trying to kind of go back into history and things of that nature. I feel like that's kind of a trick bag that we could get him into. You
We're
know what I mean?
working on it. We
Yeah,
just
get that man to move that pen. He been moving it lately, so we got to get him to move that
yeah.
pen.
Yeah, we're working on all of those things, and yeah, we just have to keep plugging at it because it's our right. We shouldn't be clumped up with a bunch of foreigners.
Right. I was saying last night, we're in a position in America where our delineation factored in with a dumbass mistake done by Joe Biden. What Joe Biden did was in 2021 put sanctions on Russian. You remember when Russia invaded Ukraine? In his brilliance and dementia, Joe Biden issued sanctions on Russia and canceled their money. The Russians had billions of U.S. dollars in sitting in a bank, and the Biden administration canceled Russians' money. Now that was a dumbass decision because the China, India, and a lot of other superpowers were watching that and said, if if the United States is going to cancel money, cancel Russian money, what's stopping them from canceling our money? So that created the formation of BRICS currency, which I'm hearing a lot of terrifying things about. But how that fits into what I'm saying is we're in an interesting position because economically America is on a descent. That factor that in with delineation and aggressive immigrant classes that are competing, like Indians that are competing with white jobs. I think, in my view of history, Black Americans are in a position of negotiation with the Trump administration. Let's make a deal. We made a deal with Ulysses S. Grant. He was a Republican, and that deal got us Reconstruction, which was one of the most powerful times in foundational Black American history. I'm not loyal to a party. Let's get this reparations. We can do it, y'all. We're gonna get a couple more people housing. What's on your mind, bro?
Hey,
Hey guys, how everybody doing? Y'all
Doing
started.
well.
Yeah, I'm laying till 11 o'clock, and I get to my phone. I'm like, oh my god, they set it off already. But anyway, is
Yeah, we started a
European
little bit
economic?
early
you're
tonight.
unpredictable.
I noticed that. Noticed that. Is that on? Is that on Professor's account? Well, you got a hot date tonight. You and wifey going out, Professor?
Possibly, possibly.
Okay, okay. But you on the Eastern Time Zone, ain't you, Professor?
Yes, sir.
All right, so you hanging out tonight? Okay, go
I'm an
shake,
AT alien.
go shake a leg. All right. Shout out to everybody in the room. Capone, the Black, Nikki the God, Ronnie. All right. Is European economic social order based upon Black exploitation? Absolutely. Mainly right here in New York. New York is the biggest exploitation of all
Preach.
because every neighborhood you go into in the Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, you got a Korean, Arab, or Dominican running the store. If you go to any of them other stores, the bigger stores, they cater to a lot of the black people. And one thing about black people, black American people, right? They have a tendency to let people know I got money to spend. And when they have this mindset, at the end of the day, you know, these white people saying, "Look at you, you're dumb. Just give me all your money." You know, most of the ethnic groups that take Black American money, they kids are and they living in beautiful houses and everything, while we just living in apartments. We struggling to pay the rent, but we'll still go spend $600 on a pair of jeans. Who does that? Black Americans, the young guys.
Yeah, who does that? A group of people whose self-esteem has been damaged by chattel slavery, which is why we need our goddamn reparations. Earlier,
Absolutely.
earlier we mentioned hats. I talked about my auntie, my great aunt, and Wani begged the real important question: why do we go buy stuff from people who treat us like shit? Well, it's a lot of psychological damage from. I'm not making excuses. I'm not explaining. I'm just saying, we got that slave trade and that badge of slavery did a lot to our mental, to our self esteem.
So is it, I'll show him I've got money, I'll buy this thing that he thinks I can't afford, or like what's the, because it makes us look dumb, to be honest.
Yeah, it does.
Absolutely, Wani. Absolutely.
Is there's just no way around it. I can't even think of a way to do mental gymnastics. Maybe you think these things are not available somewhere else and you have to buy this hat or you have to buy this hammer from this sundown town. I don't know. But I would never, ever, I would arrange a group trip once a week or once every 2 weeks to go get all these things you need. Um, anyway, hey, Mr. Freedom.
Now listen, my niece's, my cousin's son. He goes spend $100 on t-shirts. One t-shirt. He'll buy one t-shirt for $100.
Well,
What
what kind of t shirt?
a bait
I don't know.
T-shirt?
I don't know what it's in New York. They got
Gucci?
these little stores and stuff where they
Does it
cater.
look torn?
They cater to. They call them rapper clothes.
Yeah,
Does
it's
it
a
look
it's a
faded
bait.
and
Yeah. Now they got these new jeans out. Everybody's wearing now, and they cost like $600 and $700.
no, don't judge, sir.
How does he afford that? I mean, I guess it's not for me to ask, but
I
that gets
don't know.
expensive because
I
you need more than one pair of
probably
shirts.
listen. He does what he does, but he's still on his mother's titty. You understand me? So she's contributing to his little lifestyle, and she don't want us to say nothing to him. So we just stay out of it. But I'm using him as a
Yeah, stay out of it. Yeah,
yeah,
you're
I'm
right.
using him as an example on the amount of kids. I mean, not kids, actually 27 and everything. It's just like black, black, black men, especially in New York, they want to look fresh to death every day. The new Jordans, anything that costs over $200 and $300, that's what they want. They don't want to spend $40 for a pair of jeans and you get a shirt. They don't want to do none of that. And they still live with their parents.
And you know why they get spoiled and get to do that?
Why, Wani?
Because when you're in a position that Black Americans are in, our parents try to make us feel good by giving us food. Sometimes the
Facts.
food isn't good for
Yes,
you, and sometimes the little treats and the clothes and the things. We do get spoiled by our parents if they have the money to spoil us.
right.
And that's kind of what happens. And sometimes the food, it's not just Black Americans. Anybody could spoil their children with food. Hey,
They're
you
being
feel good.
enablers.
But we do it more because of our situation. Whenever you're in a bad situation, you want to make yourself feel good. That's why we're susceptible to using drugs. That's why we're
Facts.
susceptible to indulging our children, which I was indulged in the same way, the expensive clothes and all this other stuff. And I became a minimalist. I overcorrected and became a minimalist because I realized getting a little boost from those things. I'm not saying I don't like nice clothes and stuff like that, but getting a boost where you're out emotional shopping and you're not just trying to get a decent wardrobe and shoes. I realize that that's a lot of the reason why we don't have a lot of money and it's not organized. That's why people think, oh, you're going to go out and buy a bunch of Jordans because we're associated with buying that. But we really
Yeah,
know how to stretch a dollar better than anybody on the planet, really.
yeah,
Uh,
but Ronnie, when it comes to the reparations, and they talk about, oh, what black people is gonna spend? It's just gonna be a few people buying Jordans.
right.
Everybody else is gonna work that money.
We know how to manage money, or else
Absolutely.
we'd be dead. We know how to stretch a dollar, or else we'd be dead. But like I said, back to our situation of having this persistent situation going on with the racism, we do tend to spoil our children and let them have extra stuff and food and little treats and candy and whatever. And it's just like some situations in white households where they have a child that's, you know, has a problem, whatever the problem is, and then they just start spoiling them. They
Yeah.
just start giving them extra food and extra candy, and we know that that can be a bad thing. And I've seen people do it to the extreme. A grandmother spoiling her grandson, and now he's like 300 pounds with diabetes at 27.
Wow.
But she started out just wanting to make him feel good because
Right.
his mommy wasn't acting right, right? So I'm going to give my little baby all these Twinkies and treats and things and dress him up. So now that's how he was raised up to eat whatever he wanted and to dress in the finest clothes. So that's basically the mentality.
And another
And,
note,
and,
and another note.
and housing. I'm also in upstate New York myself. Do you think the legalization of marijuana has anything to do with
Let me
that
tell you
younger
something.
generation?
Let me tell you something. Since they started, listen, when they legalized weed in New York, right? It did something. It just did something. A friend of mine owns a store, and the first of this month, he said he only made $30. Like that never happened. But I explained to him a couple of years ago. I said something is wrong. Something is wrong, and right now we feeling it. Everybody's feeling it, and they giving a pass to the Arab boys to sell weed out the store. The Dominicans can't sell weed. They could take a chance, but all the Arabs in New York are able to sell weed right in the stores with no
Is it a
problem.
weed store
Facts,
or just a
facts.
regular store?
And
Oh
I
another
yeah,
remember when I
study,
was
basically in the
out there
corner
in
store.
Jersey and that shit happened. Like I had walked into a store, I was out there on the four
Yeah,
corners,
you could
and
cop,
I
you could
went,
cop,
yeah,
you
yeah,
could cop.
in broad day.
And listen, they
Word.
selling to the kids right out of school and everything.
Man,
They
right
give
in front of the
Yeah,
police
it's not.
cameras and all that
they
shit.
get, but listen, they giving them passes to do that. It's just like it's just like they get. Listen, we the only one get flagged. Black Americans is the only one get flagged.
Because we're
No matter what we
exploited.
do.
Because again, back to the title, we're being exploited in the prison industrial
Right.
complex. Like it's all about
Yeah,
exploitation, and I just want our people to realize that. Um, we're gonna get one more speaker.
I'm gonna land my plane with this
Go
here,
go ahead, House, and land your plane, brother.
and I'm gonna say this one thing. They just don't want us to come up again. That's all it is. At the end of the day, they don't want us popping off again because they feel like if we make it happen again and we balling out, they feel like we're gonna do them dirty. And I
Oh, and
land
they're gonna
my
lose.
plane.
They're gonna lose all power, bro. They're gonna lose all power. They don't
And I
know the
land my
second
plane.
Renaissance
Absolutely.
coming, brother.
Hey
You
Capone, what's
know it.
up, brother?
How you doing, my brother? Good to hear
Oh,
from you again, my man.
You
just
Oh, and
already
one
went
more
know.
down the
thing, my beautiful
railroad.
black people. And one more thing, my beautiful black people. Tomorrow is the fifth. I'm gonna need everybody to utilize the couch for these white concerns. Please utilize the couch once again for these white concerns. None of that shit is none of our business. I love y'all. Love, peace, reparations, delineation, and deportation.
Much
Let's
love
go.
Oh,
and
Hey,
goodness.
facts.
listen, It's
season's
gonna be raining
over.
all day up here in New York tomorrow. Who's
That
going out
protest is
tomorrow?
going to fall flat because look, y'all are boring. What are you
For real,
arguing
hella
about?
boring.
You want men and women's swimming pools. You want men's testicles jiggling around in silk dresses in the women's room. Is this what you're fighting about?
Yeah,
What are you fighting about? I
like
think
that
it's
shit.
Ronnie, where's your
fine.
unity? Don't you want to go swimming with the man inside of the locker
Oh
room?
Yo, that
my
is. Listen,
goodness.
let me tell you something. That is disgusting. That is disgusting.
They
What
Mental
want
that.
to
illness,
have
brother. Mental
drag
illness.
queen story. They want drag queen story hour. What do you want? Like, what are you mad about? Everything Trump checked off the list. I was like, thank you, thank you. Oh, English only, thank you, thank you, thank you, all the way down the list. DEI, it's all white women. 76% of the people that benefited were white. And we got 3%, and we don't even know who that was. That's not guaranteed Black Americans. Yeah, get rid of DEI.
Right. It's almost like they want you to be distracted and mad because even with the stock market and cryptocurrency, like now is the best time to really start
Oh yeah,
accumulating
load
and
up
really
for
figure
real.
things out. Yeah.
Now, Mr. Freedom didn't get a chance to speak. I know he normally speaks on a lot of the metaphysical topics, but
Go ahead, Mr. Freedom. You're our last speaker.
Hey, how y'all doing, everybody?
What's up, brother?
So y'all just gonna start the party, knowing I'm asleep. Y'all gonna start early. Y'all ain't gonna call me, text me, nothing.
I told them that. I just said the
I
same
thought
thing, brother.
I believed you.
They started early. I was mad too.
Done ate up
Oh,
all the good food. I got leftovers and crumbs. Oh, how y'all doing? I
Doing
hope y'all
well,
having a
brother.
good night. I hope you enjoy your weekend. I won't be too long. I hate it because I'm usually back here like googling something, and I like to give some kind of concrete whatever. But I was laughing when y'all were talking about going to these sundown towns, because when I was younger, my parents were missionaries. We was always spreading information, all that secret society stuff. We would go to the hood and we would set up shop and we would share the same way telling information now. We would do just like that. All that information that was hidden away in the secret societies, we'd put it right out there on Front Street, wake the people up. You know what I mean? And one of the things was we wasn't about mixing in with other races. You know what I'm saying? You don't gotta hate them, but the reason I bring it up is because um, they always come to our neighborhoods. They never actually live in the neighborhood. They take resources out, and they always treat you bad, right? So one of the places my parents moved to was in Decatur, um, where the 285 flea market is. You know where that is, Professor. And
Yeah, yeah, I know it is.
mhm. And when we was there, we set up shop and everything, and we was selling books and stuff like that, and waking people up. And it was run by the Korean family. And so this is what happens with me and why I wanted to share. I got a different name. Obviously I was raised slightly different, you know what I mean. I was born in New York, but I still have my southern family. You know how things split up and stuff like that. And for that reason, they treated me different. Oh, I guess in their mind, I learned that later. I'm one of the good ones, right? So so they're welcoming me, and I'm like playing with the owner of the flea market's kids. And my thing is this: yeah, that's cool and fine, but then I see how you treating everyone else that's still got my skin tone, and I don't like that shit. So what I did is I stole I stole up out of their store, because what they do is they undercut our businesses. They make deals with each other, talking about these sundown towns and how they come into our communities. They lock up the finances and circulate the money and do group of economics with each other, and supposedly their towns. But they come over to our place and they undercut our entrepreneurs, and make sure that they don't charge each other interest, or whatever we're doing, they'll copy it, and then they'll undercut the price and stuff like that. And then also want to treat us bad, because it's like, nah, you're not gonna treat me a certain way just because you don't know that I'm just like them too. The way they're looking at it, they think I'm different. But I'm like, no, we the same people, you know. So I've had this experience just off of. Let me tell you something. Just off of my name, and I know the meaning of my name. People, it's the weirdest thing how people treat you, and they don't know this. Like, yo, I'm not a foreigner. I'm not a foreigner, but I've experienced this most of my life, and I get to see how they code switch. They code switch, and it's really interesting with the delineation that's happening now. And I've always bumped heads with people because they want me to. I guess they want you to be a sellout, really, or they want you to be against black people. And then when they find out, oh, you not with race mixing, you don't really like them like that. And also, this is another thing. You don't have to go like full Dr. Umar and push your kids towards, because that happens a lot. Um, not speaking bad about anybody, but there is something to that, like that preacher's kid sort of, you know, scenario. Um, you don't have to preach hate, but let your children know what these people are. Let them know. You don't have to say they're evil and all this kind of stuff. No, no, no. That's not how. But let them know what these people are. Okay. Um, and that's one of the reasons why I never took any advances by any white women, because I know what they are. You know what I'm saying? And the reason I bring that up is because I was listening earlier today to all of these spaces, and they were talking about that stabbing. And this black woman came up there, and she was also like nice and talking about how she was feeling for the white boy, and and just felt so bad for him, and you know, and all of this stuff. And I was like, wow, like where'd that come from? You know what I mean? Like all this evil shit they did, and he actually came up to the black um athlete and told him to get out and pushed him. And you know it's just, even if you felt it was wrong, we gotta talk about that in house before we just go on. I just noticed a lot of black people automatically, and even the thing with Juicy Genius, we don't know what happened. We don't know what happened. Just wait. Just wait. Just wait. I remember one time I seen this video. I don't know if y'all remember this, and then I'll get off. Um, there was a shooting here in Atlanta, like maybe I want to say like close to 4 to 5 years back. They had a warrant for a young man, and it was a no knock warrant. It was APD, and they went in, and it was an apartment complex, and they went in and they shot over like a hundred times, 100 rounds. Okay, and there was somebody who was recording it, and the whole time it was like, oh, that nigga, he messed up. Oh, he shouldn't have shot at the cop. Didn't even know what was wrong. It was actually a false warrant. They wasn't even supposed to be there. But it's like we automatically think just because the police are involved that somebody's wrong, that our people are wrong, and we say that out loud. Don't do that. Don't do that. I'm not saying we got to condone violence and people that are wrong, but wait. Don't just automatically believe just because they got charged, just because the police showed up, just because, even if it's fed charge, just wait. Before y'all go out on the media and just say, oh, you know, they probably messed up. They probably guilty. Don't do that, because other groups of people, they handle that stuff in house. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't know what happened. So stick up for your people.
I wanted
I,
to say someone named Del Rey sent me the book payment, but I don't know their email address and I don't know how to send the book to them. Del Rey, can you message me?
and along those lines, the other day, a couple people sent me payments for my book and did not put an address. So if you ordered a book and you didn't come, double check Cash App and make sure you put an address with a zip code. Um, I think that was it, Mr. Freedom. I appreciate your contribution. So back to the topic: is the European economic and social order based upon black exploitation? Yes, it is. it has a lot to do with that. It has everything to do with that. European economic and social order, according to Dr. Amos Wilson, is diametrically opposed to Black American culture. So it relies upon uh, our exploitation for it to rise. It's been that way since the beginning. Dr. Claude Anderson says, basically, I'm paraphrasing it, that comes from the need for exploitation during the transatlantic slave trade. But Black exploitation is becoming less and less prevalent with our delineation. So, ladies and gentlemen, the key to our salvation is delineation. Keep it going. And the next step is we need to identify um, businesses that are not friendly to the foundational Black American, and we need to hit them in the pocket by keeping our money to ourselves. Last but not least, somebody brought up a good point on this space about the Blue Book, and Wani brought up a good point about the app to kind of the boycott app. Let's get that ball a rolling because I would one of the best things that I do is support black or like a real black business. I'm not talking about a diasporic black business. I'm talking about a real black business. I get pure joy. Even if I have to pay a little bit more money, I get pure joy buying from my brothers and sisters. Ladies and gentlemen, I enjoyed y'all. We'll continue this tomorrow. Juan, did you have any last comments?
Um, I kind of, but
No, come
I
on
don't
with it.
want to. I don't want to tell him the truth.
Yeah, you do. Come on.
No, just go ahead and say what you're thinking. Go
I
ahead.
I noticed that we came up with another um what do you call it? Vibe.
Okay.
We've done it again.
What do you mean?
You know.
Is this like what you were talking to me about earlier?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Most drivers don't know. We came up with another type of music and a whole new vibe. And I just thought it was very interesting and we should talk about it the next time because it's
Yeah.
more positive and it doesn't involve a lot of vulgarity. It's just really feel good. And then it has the line dancing that goes along with it.
Oh, I love it. I love the whole line dancing vibe. Wani, what's happening is we're getting back to ourselves because that's who we are. We are celebration in the face of oppression.
Yeah.
There it is.
Whoa, I got my boots on. I'm standing up doing a dance.
Hey, y'all got me doing this shit
I
at
know
work,
all
man.
the
Turn that
steps
off.
to
Turn
it
that off.
too.
There it is.
I just I just hope everybody takes showers before they do all that fan and ass whipping because
Ah,
it's gonna stank in that
Oh,
club.
that fan flicking.
Oh, please, please, shut off the
hey,
roof work.
hey,
Please,
get your root
please.
work. All right, ladies and
We've
gentlemen.
Do
we've
not be in there with hot picks.
we've done it again, people.
Professor, what time you starting tomorrow?
We're
We
starting.
don't know.
Probably a normal
Go
time.
ahead.
It's a reason. It's a reason why we started early. And
Okay.
yeah, yeah, and the person will tell you if they want to why. But yeah, it's a good reason.
Well, enjoy yourself, young man.
It wasn't me, but it's all good.
Yes,
It
sir.
can be me.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Y'all have a good one. I love y'all,
Sure.
and I will see y'all tomorrow.
Y'all take care. Peace.
All right.
Love